Minister of Communication for the MOVE organization. I am the sole adult survivor of the May 13, 1985 government bombing and murder of my family. I am a representative of the International Concerned Family Friends of Mumia. I'm a former political prisoner. I did 7 years in prison for surviving that massacre. But most importantly, I am a revolutionary disciple of John African, MOVE's founder. And I don't hesitate or back up or apologize for saying I am a revolutionary.
Bunch of fake followers, that's not the move. But from the solid type, I'm approved. That's for who I'm comfortable. What I got to prove. Zach tried to warn me. Most were not before me. Won't like it or post a comment, but they watch your story. Might be yanking sleep, but they eyes beyond me. Won't believe till I'm on that podcast with Nori. Or Flash TV, next to Lazada BP. Envy around me like See the God and Angela Yee. And got a nerve to tell me keep working. Like I don't know, they hope I fold, keep lurking. Creating my own ways, keep surfing. Spitting pain is a layup like G. Gervin. Big play for lyricism returning. So many accolades, P earned them. I came and said it, tell them lay embedded. Just had my money straight, I ain't taking debit. They ain't gotta like me long as they respect it. And the ones that fronted on me know that they regret it. I'm making way more noise than they expected. Control the game while they the contestants. Legendary King P's, and I'm here to make it great for MCs. Again, I chose to make a lane before I played the game. So never in jeopardy to gain a name. I knew the sun would shine for all the days of rain. I wish everybody would. Can y'all say the same? Unify, die. Let's build each other up instead of crucify. Unify, die. The best is yet to come. Follow the sign. Some just had the skill and some don't. Some will and some won't. But who am I to judge? Well respected and connected, making moves without a plug. Westbrook flows and boots, I drop a triple dub. They hoping I lose, but they know how I move. Stand on my lonely, letting nothing hold me, showing I prove. Shine bright, me and this mic tight like Smokey and Q. Stick together, these peasants don't want no smoke, keep it cool. Please advise them, stop imitating, I see them jotting. City on my back in this way and I need no proxing. Lane taking they self, no need to mop them. Ain't fading PZ, AC/DC, I keep it rocking. Grew up in the time when they was junior black mobbing. I was on the stoop wildin', bumping Coochie rap bobble. For the rise, I see it vivid. Up the top, no need to script it. On my grind of reaching ticket planes and stopping me, forget it. Jewel dropper, solid as a rock, I move proper. Got true honor, my word is my bond. Superb with wordplay, I ain't got a curse when I rhyme. None before me, none to come. First of my kind, can't spin me with a 360. Put way too many hours in. Time to strip in the city. Babies need empowerment. Hurt me staying bottled in. Murder rate towering. The game been in need of relief. Is you following? I chose to make a lane before I played the game. So never in jeopardy to gain a name. I knew the sun would shine for all the days of rain. I wish everybody would. Can y'all say the same? Unify, die. Let's build each other up instead of crucify. Unify, die. The best is yet to come. Follow the sign.
BB Fohodie, BB Toomey, Kujitiwala, Shialafiani. Welcome to the war zone. Welcome to the battlefield. Welcome to the front lines. Welcome to Ground Zero. Welcome to the War Report with yours truly, Brother Olàyínká. Thank you all for joining us. Definitely, we are looking to have a great show for you all tonight. Thank you all for joining us here on Due to Knowledge Radio, the place where knowledge is born. This is definitely a very special day for me, and I'd be remiss to mention the fact that today is my son, Ifa Korede's second birthday. He turned 2 today, 2 years ago. Today he was born. Very special for me personally. I always heard that fatherhood changes a man before having a child. Yes, and now that I'm a father, definitely it has changed me for the better. He's my world. He's everything to me. And
happy born day! Happy born day!
Yeah. Thank you, Brother Gabe. Definitely happy born day to my son, Ifa Korede, Eko Dun, Eko Jobi. Giving thanks and praise to Oludumare, the Orishas, the Egungun, for my son and his second birthday. So I'm dedicating this particular show to him tonight. And as we move forward, just get through a couple particulars for those individuals who are interested in the African Independence Day, the upcoming 18th annual African Independence Day Mayat celebration, which will take place Saturday, August the 6th, from 12 p.m. to 8 p.m. at Malcolm X Park. Definitely listen out for all the information right here on Due to Knowledge Radio on the War Report. You can also hit us up at the website or webpage, which is AfricanIndependenceDay.org, which is actually under construction. We plan to be getting our page back up within a couple of days. So we're working on that whole thing right now. Or you can call us on our hotline, the official African Independence Day number at 267-521-1544, and get with us as far as if you want to vend, if you want to perform, if you want to speak at African Independence Day. You can also hit us up on Gmail at africanindependenceday@gmail.com. Now, African is spelled AFRKAN. So be sure to spell it AFRKAN, Independence Day @gmail.com. Okay. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about African Independence Day at the end of the program. We're organizing, mobilizing, getting everything together for it. So we're looking forward to our 18th annual in August. Hopefully everything holds as far as this whole COVID thing, because the numbers have been said to be rising again. So we don't want to go back into lockdown mode again. So we already been locked down for 2 years, so we ain't trying to do that anymore. But yeah. For any individual who wants to be a future guest of the War Report, you can email me personally at obawajumi_Olàyínká@yahoo.com. My name is at the bottom, my first name and my last name _@yahoo.com. If anyone has any comments, criticisms, critiques, as far as how I can better this particular program, also personally email me at obawajumi_Olàyínká@yahoo.com. My name is at the bottom of the screen there, underneath my picture there. There you go. So you can also hit me up on Cash App to support this program at ObaGod7 at the bottom of your ticker there on Cash App, $ObaGod7. And last but not least, support all the great programming right here at DTKR, Do the Knowledge Radio. Shout out to my brother, Knowledge Born Allah, CEO and founder of Do the Knowledge Radio. You can hit him up on both Cash App and on PayPal. So on Cash App, it is $ Knowledge Born Allah. Once again, that's $ Knowledge Born Allah. And on PayPal, it's paypal.me/Do the Knowledge Radio. Once again, that is paypal.me/Do the Knowledge Radio. So as we move forward tonight with our program and our very, very special guest, my dear brother, we were talking backstage. Our relationship actually goes back about 21 years now.
Right, that's right.
A brother who is very, 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 very vital here in the city of Philadelphia as an activist in the community, teacher, always on the front lines for our people. He's actually the founder of the Sankofa Community Empowerment Chapter here in the city of Philadelphia, where I first met him. Mm-hmm. His role has become even more expansive over the years. But he's here tonight to talk about and to update us on the status of the case of our brother, our political prisoner of war, our brother, our strong revolutionary, the one and only Mumia Abu-Jamal. I like to bring on to the War Report none other than my good brother, Brother Gabriel Bryant. Thank you, Brother Gabe. Welcome to the War Report.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Peace and black power to the family. It's always good being with brothers and sisters who are on the front lines by way of media, because we know that we need to own everything in our community, including the ways in which we tell our story and our narrative. So much respect and much props and much peace to Do the Knowledge Radio and your entire platform, good brother. Thank you for having me. It's an honor and a pleasure.
Thank you for being here, brother. I definitely appreciate you. And we got a lot to talk about,
Yes,
but
sir.
First, as we always do with every guest that we have, talk a little bit about yourself and the things that you've done and the things that you are currently doing in the community for African people here in Philadelphia.
Yes, sir. The majority of my work has been really in the space of how do we bridge and build Black power through creating modules and spaces for leadership development, to really have those, critical conversations that lead to intelligent action orientation. A lot of the work that I do that I'm most proud of comes from the idea that we must always protect and defend our own by any means necessary, right? And so sometimes that might look like doing things that we might not always have our foot 90% all the way in and wanting to do, but knowing that in the moment it's required as a means of rapid response and trying to be able to make sure that people can feel safe in the hells of North America. To be more specific, as you mentioned, Sankofa Community Empowerment started in 2001. We've been in Philadelphia since 2002. And a lot of that work required us to create spaces for political education. That's something that we understand from our elders and from our master teachers, the idea that we must always find ways, even those of us who are, on the front lines, we must continuously research, learn, study, to figure out new strategies and new approaches to attack and combat this beast. Through that, also, as you mentioned, for the better part of the past, really 20 years, around the same time period, I began to be a part of the campaigns to free not only Mumia Abu-Jamal here in Philadelphia, but also the Move 9. And through that work, I got connected to other national campaigns, including also locally Russell Maroon Schultz and a couple of others, Sundiata Kohli, and a couple others that we'll get to during this conversation. Obviously, a big part of that work produced, in my opinion, one of the greatest victories of the past 5 years, which is the Move 9 folks coming home. And I always say all the time, be surprised how many people in 02, 07, 2011, 2016 said, "Brother Gabe, you're wasting your time, brother.
Right.
Move to Move 9. They was arrested back in August 8th, 78.
Yeah.
It's worthless energy. It's hopeless energy. You always talk about packing the courts and you marching and you rallying and raising confidence and you writing this DA's office and you going to this Harrisburg office and you going to this mayor's office." Not knowing that in 2018, you know, Debbie Africa comes home, then Mike Africa Sr. comes home, then Eddie Africa comes home, then Janet and Janine come home, then Delbert come home. You know what I mean? And then Chucky comes home. And so the reality is that, you know, one thing I've learned through this work as I answer your question and close with my answer is that, you know, the victory may not always be in a week or a month or even a year's time. But if you're vigilant and stay convicted, the victory will actually indeed come. And so I've really been active in a lot of the work around political prisoners. And I'll close by saying that a lot of my work also has been around youth engagement. You know, I do a lot of work in the schools. I was actually at Washington High School this morning doing some programs with some young boys and young men. And so that's always been a big part of my work. I want to make sure that I can connect and be a Jegna for the boys and the Black men who need it, particularly those who, you know, society chooses to discard and dispose of. You know, it's our position and our role to pick them back up from the doldrums of society and make sure that they understand the divine that they are. And so that's also been a big part of my work.
One of the things we discussed backstage before we came on air, we were talking about the fact that there are those of us who are in the know, who know exactly what is going on, understand who's on the playing field, understand what our role and our position is, and are clearly working, you know what I mean, on the front lines to produce change for African people. And there are platforms like this, such as Due to Knowledge Radio and this particular show, where there are people who are tuning in who don't know and understand the actual playing field and the players on the field to determine where they stand and how they can be educated, and not only educated, but to be moved into action. There are very few people. You'd be surprised. There are a number of people who don't know anything about Brother Mumia or his case. So, can you go through the history of Brother Mumia, his significance of this case, because this case is internationally, not nationally, but internationally known.
Yes, sir.
And it's being fought for his freedom all around the world.
Yes, sir.
So you go into a little bit of the history of Brother Mumia and how we have ended up here at this particular point today in 2022.
Yes, sir. Mumia Abu-Jamal is probably one of the most well-known, if not the most well-known, political prisoner across the world. He is a native Philadelphian, Philadelphia's native son, if you will, who was a youth organizer in his high school years. Actually, he was a member of the local Philadelphia chapter of the Black Panther Party. He was involved in the ministry of the work to get the information out. All right, he worked for the paper, and he's always been a writer and a journalist. He's always considered himself to be a Black radical journalist, always trying to bring the good word to the people in any way that he could. What we found out through the decades of this campaign is that the feds and the police have actually been watching him since he was the age of 15 years old. That's how serious this brother's story is. And so if you understand the times, we'll get to it in a moment. But he turns 68 years old on Sunday, April 24th.
That's right.
And so we're talking about, really, over 40 years ago. We can imagine those times, right? These were the times that, confronted and assassinated, Chairman Fred Hampton, and the times that confronted and assassinated Malcolm X and all of our leaders, right? All of our champions across the world, from, Medgar Evers to you name the word, Patrice Lumumba, right? That's just what's going on across the world. And so to think that somebody like a Mumia Abu-Jamal would be followed at 15 is actually not out of bounds or out of the question. And so during his time in the early to mid 70s, he began to follow a lot of the work, not only in Philadelphia, but really across Pennsylvania, particularly a lot of what's going on as far as the movement building, right? He began to track what's going on in Philadelphia, a lot of the work that was happening to create change, issues of police brutality. A big part of it that I want your listeners and viewers to think about and watch after this, to do your research, is to do knowledge on a monster by the name of Frank Rizzo. And some listeners may know that name, but some may not. He was somebody who was the police commissioner, wound up being the mayor, and really had a stranglehold on the whole city of Philadelphia, and particularly was racist, white supremacist, anti-black to the core, and really had a regime of devilishment, here in Philadelphia, to the point that it was so evil that I know elders to this day who still carry that trauma of what he exercised back in the 70s and 80s. What he used to do was violent in the ways that he would combat not only black organizers and black activists, but just, ordinary brothers and sisters in the neighborhoods. He was just a terrorist of the highest order. And so Mumia Abu-Jamal covered a lot of that story back in the 70s, particularly the confrontations between Frank Rizzo and what would be birthed in 1972. This year actually is the 50th year anniversary of what is called the MOVE organization, started by John Africa back in 1972. We're actually in the 50th year anniversary, right? Very critical year to understand for our community and for your viewers. MOVE is a Back to Nature Life organization. It's a group that sought to expose injustice, not only in Philadelphia, but really across the country. They looked at questions of police terrorism. They looked at questions of the environment. They looked at questions of, the ways in which food is made and processed to us, water, the ways in which family is looked at, right, as far as children. And so they really were sort of, returning back to the essence, right, and back to the core of life. And they were attacked for that, right, over the years. And so Mumia Abu-Jamal is covering all this in the 70s. And the interesting thing about Mumia Abu-Jamal is that he actually received plenty of awards while he was doing that. I mean, Philadelphia Magazine, which was a very well-known magazine up to this day, gave him actually, in the same year that he was arrested, gave him an award as one of the 81 people to watch in 1981. He actually was one of those folks, like how they do in magazines, like every year. He actually was one of those recipients the same year that he actually was arrested, because he's always been a great, amazing journalist. He also was on the radio. He was known very well for his booming, authoritative voice that people can remember because his voice is so powerful.
Yes, it is.
So to make a long story short, on December 9th, 81, right in Center City, he is, at that point in time, he's being really pretty much like many of us, Brother Oba, who have to choose due to the ways in which, as Black activists, revolutionary thinkers and doers, we're oftentimes, our jobs, occupations kind of comes in conflict, right? And so he was at that point too, where he had to actually take a job also as a cab driver. And so he was also, driving a cab. And, people can look this up also on several sites that I'll share at the end. But basically has a confrontation with a police officer, Daniel Faulkner, who actually, Mumia actually gets shot. Daniel Faulkner also gets shot, gets killed. But since the beginning, there have been factual evidence to prove that Mumia Abu-Jamal not only is, factually innocent, he's legally not guilty of that crime. We've had the best legal teams from across the world with the evidence show that. There have been several entertainers and big names through the years who have supported this campaign through the years. And he's maintained his innocence since that time of December 9th, 81. And I think it's important for listeners to know that he's somebody that really, even through his time of incarceration, has always continued to share the truth. And I'll share how in a minute. But it's important to know, man, that people like Mumia Abu-Jamal are not new. There have always been a miscarriage of justice, trumped up charges for many of our revolutionary thinkers and doers and actors, and he's just one of many. It just so happens that he also had a voice that he utilized while on the inside. He didn't allow the beast, the prison system, to quiet his voice. In fact, if anything, he used the prison system to amplify his voice, to the point that now if you go to prisonradio.org, again, that's prisonradio.org, he has weekly commentaries from inside the prison where he pretty much talks about the issues of the day, everything from politics to what's going on in Black life and the community life. And so, definitely check that out to see what we're talking about as far as the politics. And so we find ourselves now 40 years later, because on July 3rd, 82 was when he actually received his conviction. All right. So July 3rd. So he's arrested December 9th, 81. He's convicted July 3rd, 82. And so July 3rd of this year, 2022, we're coming up on 40 years, all right, of this conviction. And so our campaign is saying free him now, and that the only justice at this point in time is his freedom.
Where do we currently stand as far as freeing Mumia and bringing him home?
Yes, sir.
What is the latest reports and updates? Because as of last year, we know that he was being grossly mistreated.
No question.
As far as his health was concerned, we put a call out, fast.
Yes, sir.
Got a mobilization together to really jump on those individuals at the internment camp that he is being held in, the prison that he's being held in, to give Mumia the medical treatment that he deserves and things of that nature. First of all, how's his health?
Yes, sir.
And secondly, where does the case stand?
So since about 2016, 2015, he's really been dealing with what we call medical neglect. And he'll say himself that it's not isolated to Mumia Abu-Jamal. All prisoners, all brothers and sisters, in the prisons are suffering from the injustices of poor food, poor diet, poor lighting, poor days, poor everything, as far as, poor medical care, right, in these prisons, right? And so he'll be the first to say, hey, this is not just a Mumia Abu-Jamal thing. This is your cousin, my cousin, you know what I mean? My auntie, your auntie as well, dealing with the same health issues in the prisons. But certainly over the years, he's developed some serious skin ailments that affected him. Cirrhosis of the liver, hepatitis C. Hep C is a huge one. It affects thousands of prisoners across the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. He caught COVID-19 last year, which was actually a huge scare, actually 2 years ago now, which was a huge scare for the campaign because he's been dealing with that on top of all these other challenges. And also the past year, he also had, what you alluded to, he had to have congestive heart failure, right? So his heart was ailing, right? And so we had to band together to get him the surgery and the medical care that he needed at that time. So he's doing better now, but he still feels sort of like the residual effects of that. And for those who may have either had COVID or those who have either had Hep C, understand that some of those things sort of might go away a little bit in the temporary, but still have those kind of long-lasting effects about fatigue, right? Weakness, right? And so the thing about Mumia is that he never wants to make us feel away or feel bad. So he'll try to make it act like everything's okay. But when you visit him, like his grandson Jamal did just this past Monday, we also see the real and are able to advocate for his behalf as best we can. legally where we stand is that we just had a case this past March 2nd, so literally not too long ago. And as per usual, they got pushed back, right? So they pushed the date back. We're all there. We're outside at the CJC, as we always do. We packed the courts. And I think that as what they try to do is wait us out, right? That, Brother Oba, their biggest strategy is if they can push things back because they don't have all the evidence, they'll continue to try to see if, okay, well, maybe next time not so many people will come. But the reality is that they pushed it back to the end of June. And what they're discussing right now is, when Larry Krasner, Philadelphia's current DA, I won't say our DA, I'll say Philadelphia's DA.
Exactly.
Yeah, you follow me on that. Right. But when Larry Krasner was first brought in, he actually found several boxes that had Mumia's name on them. Right. And they were full of files that hadn't been put a part of his case for decades. They were just in there since I think came in office 2018. And so that got brought into the case. And due to them saying that there might have been some other biases based on other people on his staff, they said that it wasn't legally bound for them to actually have a court case because it wasn't fair. And so first it went to the Supreme Court, then it had to be pushed up to a Superior Court, vice versa. And that's pretty much where things stand, right? We believe that based on this new evidence, which actually includes a note where somebody says, hey, we did what you had to do. Where's my payment? You see? So there's been this rich legacy of this story of these actors who have pretty much been paid off to do what they had to do behind the scenes. And this kind of comes out during Krasner's first year in office, right? And so that's where the case stands. We actually feel confident, our legal team feels confident that once this thing goes to the highest courts here in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, that we're actually going to be able to perhaps see a new trial. And then once we have that new trial, that he's coming home. Our position actually is, just to be frank with you, brother, is that because of all the corruption, all the shenanigans, all the neglect, that they need to just free him today. Our position is, Governor Wolf needs to just, make a blanket statement and just say, hey, he needs to come home. But the reality is we know that there's a process involved. And so we're doing, everything that we have to do on our end. But the good thing is this. The good thing is, as we all have found and understand, I alluded to the fact that, again, the Move Now people have come home. Herman Bell, right, came home. Albert Woodfox came home after almost 50 years. So many political prisoners. Robert King is home. Oscar Lopez Rivera is home.
Even Barbara Russell Schultz.
Russell Maroon Schultz. And that was a huge one, brother, because Russell Maroon, with Maroon, again, he was one of those ones that is so near and dear to Philadelphia, man. You know what I mean? And his story is so powerful of the 1970s. I want people to read his book called Implacable, Maroon the Implacable. It's an amazing story of his story as an activist. We're talking about the most serious of our organizations Maroon was a part of and really a leader of. And his leadership, I mean, we're talking about somebody who was able to, let's just say, spark liberation from these prisons twice in the 70s. You know what I mean? But when he actually is found, and this past year, brother, he also, like Mumia Abu-Jamal and many other prisoners, fell ill. And a couple of years ago, the family found out that he had, stage 4 cancer. See, the thing is, brother and family, they know that they can't outright kill some of these folks. And so they know that, but the bad food, the bad care will lead to some of these sicknesses and illnesses. And all of a sudden, they'll, pass away and make transition that way. But here's the light in the sky with the silver lining and all of this, right? The brother comes home after 50 years, October of 2021, after having, still having, stage 4 cancer. He passes away in December of 2021. And for some folks, they might say, well, Brother Gabe, wow, like that's just a sad thing. I was like, and it is sad to a certain extent. It is sad. But one thing I can share that he said himself, he was able to go to Juma outside. right? He was able to feel hugged by his family,
Mm-hmm.
right? He was able to connect with folks who he hadn't seen in
Mm-hmm.
decades.
Mm-hmm.
See his family members they had seen behind a glass
Mm-hmm.
or separated by
The
security.
significance of human contact.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And to know that even if he was to make transition, that he could do it surrounded by family and with
Right.
his dignity intact.
Right.
See, because ultimately their goal is to dehumanize us to the highest order.
Right.
But us being able to bring him home at that moment, so that he could, feel the sunshine, not from the confines of the yard, right? Go
Mm-hmm.
for walks in Philadelphia that he hasn't seen since the 1970s.
Mm-hmm.
That's powerful stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really reminded me also because the previous year, I must mention, and rest in peace, Delbert Africa comes home January 2019. He also passes away June 2019. He's only outside, as it were, for 6 months. Passes also of cancer.
Mm-hmm.
We lost Chuck Africa September of 20, like that also just the last year as well. That's
Mm-hmm.
about a year. Chuck Africa passes away also from cancer.
Right.
And so we lose these three giants
Right.
in the movement world due to health and cancer. But the blessing is that we still had them and were able to do the work. And the
Right.
work was not in vain. Trust me, family, the work wasn't in vain. They would say that. They have said that.
Right.
And most importantly, their family has said that. So
Right.
thank you to everybody who ever wrote a letter, like you, Brother Oba, stood on the front line, shared information on your platform. Everybody that ever, signed a petition online.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody that just held space for a vigil, organized court, strategized, did everything that you could. It meant the world to these generals in our midst. And so thank you again. And so Mumi is next. That's our position. And not only is Mumi Abu Jamal next, but Sundiata Kohli's next.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Matul Shakur is next,
Mm-hmm.
right? All the Kamal Siddiqui is next,
Mm-hmm.
right? And we know, so on and so forth, all the names, because these are the individuals, family, who sacrificed so much during a period of time in human history that was perhaps at one of its most perilous for Black people. But it was a time where we chose to stand up. We chose to make decisions that we knew would change the trajectory of how we were going, right? Mm-hmm. One of the things I always say all the time that I learned from my elders is that, many of us have insight, many of us have hindsight, but they have foresight. Mm-hmm. And they understood what was coming down the pike. They knew what would happen in cities like Philadelphia, in Baltimore, in LA, Chicago, and Detroit if they did what they had to do then, so that we could be doing what we're doing now to make sure that this struggle moves forward. So I'm eternally grateful, but also eternally optimistic that we're going to win when it comes to this fight to bring home all of our political prisoners.
Mm-hmm. We understand that it is a challenge. It's a challenge. They're just not going to. Of course, this beast, this devil's not going to just let them come home.
The days of Asada in '79 are kind of over because the ways in which the prisons have been so militarized. Right. We're dealing with a different apparatus, right? In 2022 than '79, where people, it's just a different. It's a different reality. We're in a different world. But go ahead, brother.
No, I mean, I think people sometimes don't realize what we're up against.
Yes, sir.
And when they realize what they're up against, I think that a lot of fear begins to set in. A lot of disbelief, then a lack of confidence in trying to bring our political our PPOWs, our political prisoners of war, home.
Yes, sir.
Understanding that we're up against a machine and how criminal.
Yes, sir.
They go about doing things. is like what Baba Khalid always says. He says this is not a criminal justice system. It's a criminal justice system, because the criminal justice system ran by criminals.
That's right.
So they're going to do any and everything to dissuade, to try to keep that brother or that sister from coming home. And me personally, I believe that that's the thing. I think that it's a stall tactic in a way to leave brothers like Brother Mumia, Brother Sundiata Kohli, Brother Jamil Al-Amin, many of our brothers and sisters who are PPOWs in prison so that they can die.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so it would take the starch out of our movement, out of our fight.
That's right.
You know what I mean? That this can happen to you if you go about doing things in the way in which these brothers and these sisters went about doing it. And what do you think that, I'm talking about people who want to get involved and want to get actively doing things to bring these brothers and sisters home? What can they do? What can these brothers and sisters who really want to get involved do to make that happen? Who really understand, who are beginning to understand what they're up against, but at the same time, and their tactics, but at the same time are determined, have that self-determination, have that courage to bring our brothers and sisters home.
Yes, sir. One of the brothers, and to me, just personal heroes, two of the brothers actually that because they have a similar line when I hear them speak, who did decades in prison, who I have the just again honor of being able to even be in communication with, his brother Sekou Odinga, who we know was involved in the liberation of our mother and Mama Assata Shakur, who did 34 years in prison and has now been out now, going on 7 years, I believe, going maybe 8 years now. And Brother Jalil Mutakim, who came home a couple of years ago. And again, it's interesting because these are just, for some folks, names that they used to just hear on PE records and, Dead Press records, you know what I mean? Like Jalil Mutakim and Herman Bell. Didn't anyone say that, right? 25 years ago? But what they always say is, when they came out was, do the small stuff. And here's why that's powerful, because, they immediately link back with the work and working with younger activists and organizers. And one thing I always say first and foremost, we spoke earlier, Brother Oba, about the importance of political education. Do a little bit of your own research. And I'm going to share some websites in a minute. I want y'all to go to two websites around Mumia Abu Jamal. First, go to Instagram, IG. Go to Love Not Fear. That's Love Not, and fear is not spelled with an F, but with a PH. So Love Not Fear on Instagram, and also lovenotfear.com. You can also go to Mobilization, the number 4, Mumia.com. Again, Mobilization, the number 4, Mumia.com. Also on social media. It's important to be able to just read first and do your own information, more importantly, from our narrative. Don't read their narrative, because if you read that stuff, you're going to think that these leaders and generals were, just the worst of the worst. But if you understand completely, from a Black perspective, from an activist perspective, who these people are and what they meant, you'll get the truth. And so I would say to read first, right? So just to kind of get your knowledge up, right? So we're talking about doing the knowledge, right? Do the knowledge and get your read on. Right. Secondly, I always say this, as far as the work is concerned, because you mentioned that the state, our open enemy, wants our people to forget them, to dispose of them, and to mentally discard them, begin to write them. I say all the time, some of us spend $5 a day on coffee, our breakfast sandwich. Do you know what I mean? Other things that we probably spend on a daily, right? It costs you 50 cents for a stamp or a book of stamps, and probably about 10 minutes of your time when you're not on YouTube or on Netflix to write a letter to these brothers and sisters. And you might be saying, well, Brother Gabe, why does that help? Well, it helps because many of the names I just gave you, oftentimes may not get letters that you think. And your letter to somebody who's been serving 30,
Right.
40, 45 years, it means everything to them.
Right.
It means everything to them to wake up in the morning and you get some mail. And you might not even know the person. Who's this Brother Gabe from Philadelphia? But to read some empowering words to get your day going, right? To know that all's not lost, to know that all the work that I did isn't in vain, that I'm not forgotten about, that there are people still on the front line carrying forth the tradition that I did 80s, 90s, 70s, and in some cases, even the 60s. That work didn't get forgotten, that we've in the spirit of the griot, in the spirit of the jelly, in the spirit of those people who told our story, we've continued their work, right? We have an ancestral obligation to do that. And so being able to just spend the time. I'll give you also a website because the National Jericho movement is pretty much like the umbrella org for all of most of the political prisoner campaigns, right? Jericho Network, which actually was started by a political prisoner, and also with organizers, including Jalil Muttaqin, back in the 90s. And so when I think about the Jericho Network, you can see pretty much all the political prisoners, but as well as where to write them at, right? So it has the addresses of all the prisons, right? So for instance, in Mumia Abu-Jamal, we know that he's at SCI Mahanoy here in Pennsylvania. We have his number, so you can write him, right? It gives you also the instructions on how to write, what things you can't include in a letter, and how to best do it. And the great thing about it is these folks will write you back. I mean, there've been so many times where somebody has said, well, Brother Gabe, I can't believe that so-and-so actually wrote me back. And I got a letter back from Mumia Abu-Jamal. I got a letter back from Kamal Siddiqui. I got a letter back from Rochelle McGee, right? When Albert Wilcox came home, he's talking to folks who he'd been writing letters to for decades who he never met. And it's a powerful sort of surreal experience to really have that interaction, to have that encounter. And so I would say research. If you're able to spend, perhaps once a month or once every couple of months, write a letter. And then locally, there are many campaigns. Like I said, Love Not Fear and Mobilization for Mumia is the Mumia kind of at-large campaigns, which also encompasses, for instance, the International Friends and Family of Mumia Abu-Jamal, which is obviously Mama Pam Africa, and so many others. But we also have campaigns like the Free
Shout out to Mama Pam, by the way.
Of course, we had to shout out Mama Pam Africa. Peace to her and Brother Raza Khan.
Yes.
We also have the Free Kamal Siddiqui campaign, which is all on Instagram. Sundiata Akoli FC. Again, Sundiata, Sundiata Acoli FC on Instagram is the Bring Sundiata Akoli Home Alliance. Sundiata Akoli also is the brother who was arrested back in '73 with Assata Shakur. So we know that 3 individuals were arrested in part of that confrontation back on the New Jersey Turnpike. Assata Shakur, Sundiata Akoli, and Zay Shakur, who was killed on the scene. And so there's so many others, but Sundiata, by the way, I must share, is in his mid-80s, family. Mid-80s, and what this brings up, dear brother, is another issue that Dr. Johanna Fernandez talks about, in the sense that who's also a big organizer for the campaign, about the idea that many of these prisons have become pretty much like elder facilities, right? So you got somebody who's in their mid-80s in prison doing the same thing that he was doing in prison back in the 80s, right? Same horrible conditions, eating the same horrible food, right? He needs to come home regardless, right? He's not a threat to anybody, you know what I mean? Or like he needs to come home ASAP. And so those are the things why we're trying to fight for these folks. Definitely somebody like Dr. Mutul Shakur, who we know also needs to come home ASAP. And again, the good thing about it is, as I close on this part, there have been we've really ramped up our legal teams so that we can make sure that we can find those legal loopholes, but also find new ways to explore the truth in these cases it's actually helping to bring people home. Like, it's actually helping. Again, it's taking forever. Again, I know people might say, to your point about hopelessness, it's like, but that, Gabe, it took us 50 years to bring home, somebody like an Albert Woodfox, out in the West Coast.
Right.
But the thing about it is, Albert Woodfox was in Philadelphia last fall, September. He was in Philly for our Run Down the Walls campaign to raise awareness. And to see that brother, man, with his big old afro, smiling, shaking everybody's hand, having a good time, talking, building, providing a good word to younger activists. I mean, there's just nothing like it, because these are people again, who champion Black liberation at its highest point. And so we're thankful, man. So go to Love Not Fear on Instagram. Again, all the websites, again, prisonradio.org to hear Mumia Abu-Jamal's commentary. And there's going to be some things happening, man. If I could just kind of go right into it, Brother Oba, if I can.
Go right in there.
Sunday, like I mentioned, is Mumia Abu-Jamal's 68th birthday, man, born day. You know what I mean? 68 years. He's been in now since he was in his late 20s. I mean, think about that for a minute, right? And surveilled since he was a teenager. And so the reality is that he needs to come home. And so in the past, every year on his birthday, we would have like a big rally, march. We bring in hundreds of, if not thousands of people to Philadelphia from across the East Coast and across the country. Organized, mobilized. We have people. I mean, last year we had a big event. We got Chairman from Hampton Jr. come out. We got Immortal Technique come out. All kinds of folks come out. Right. In the past, M1 rappers and MCs and artists, entertainers. This year, man, for the 40th anniversary, we're choosing a different process, bro. And part of the Love Not Fear angle is, how do we bring about a new approach? One thing that we need to do differently, we recognized in the past couple of years during the pandemic, and specifically, was what you said earlier. You said earlier, Brother Oba, people may not know who Brother Mumia Abu-Jamal is.
Right.
Even those who live in the old neighborhood where he lived. So since 2020, we've been actually going back to his neighborhood, his old block, right in the heart of North Philadelphia, at 7th and Wallace, right? Talking to the folks in those homes over there, right? It's a small little tight-knit kind of sort of housing development. And Philadelphia, Brother Oba, so it's right behind, Silk City and Transit. What I mean?
Right. I know exactly.
And so we've been going there, man, since 2020, talking to the neighbors. And the cool thing about it is, we met some elders who knew Mumia back when he was young. We met some young folks who actually were incarcerated and knew Mumia from the inside, up at SCI Manoy. I knew Mu when I was upstate. And so we're creating connections now with people on the block. And so on the 24th, we'll be back on the neighborhood doing something more intimate. We're going to do something actually in his neighborhood. We're doing like a block and resource kind of support celebration, but on the block though, right? We're going to have giveaways for the children, free food for the neighbors. So it's not going to be like our typical rally. It's just going to be more of an intimate thing for the family members on that block, right? We're going to go more insular and show the love part of Mumia. And we're saying, this is from Mumia Abu-Jamal. You know what I'm saying? This is from Mumia to you. He went to a school right at Broader Spring Garden called Bryant Franklin High School. In fact, he was part of the committee that was trying to get it changed to, Malcolm X High School back in the day, but he went to Bryant Franklin High School. And we're doing some programs at the school as well, because a lot of the high school students have no idea who. I mean, of course, they're trying to teach the kids that, right? Or rather, teach the children that. And so we're doing that on the 24th. And by the way, subsequently, because you mentioned this is also a movement that is international, is global. There's going to be actions also on 24th in Mexico, in Germany, and other places as well. We're still getting flyers as well from across the country. We're getting one from Africa, one from other places as well. I believe something in Ghana. When I was in Ghana 6 years ago, they asked me about Mumia Abu-Jamal without me even prompting the question. They asked me about Mumia Abu-Jamal when I was in Accra in 2016. So again, people know who Mumia is. But that's happening on the 24th. That carries us to May 13th. May 13th, 1985 is the date of the MOVE bombing. I mentioned MOVE earlier as I close because MOVE was central to Philadelphia organizing. And again, they started in 72. They had a conversation in 78 where the MOVE 9 got arrested. 85, their home gets bombed by, really the mayor, Wilson Good, by, Greg Sandbar, who was the, with the police and just the managing director's office, right? On his home, which actually destroyed about 250 homes, but killed 11 men, women, and children of the African family. And so every year on May 13th, we do an honoring, a vigil of some kind, an action of some kind, a rally of some kind, to always remember that MOVE bombing, which really is arguably one of the most sinister acts to ever happen on U.S. soil. And so we always
the most sinister act.
Say again.
Probably the most sinister.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I can't think of anything that tops that the death of 11 individuals, men, women, and children. I mean,
that's right. That's right. I want folks to watch a documentary because this is about, again, doing the knowledge. If you can, check out the documentary called "Let the Fire Burn."
Yeah.
It was made about 7 years ago, and it details in stark footage that was live at the time, the commission that was organized to look at how can we address this MOVE bombing. And it has some of the key characters and live news footage of what was happening on May 12th into May 13th. The MOVE bombing happened the day after Mother's Day on May 13th. And it shows the whole, so you can see for yourself what happened, right? It's called Let the Fire Burn, phenomenal documentary about the story. So what's going to be happening here, we're going to be at Cobb's Creek, right at 63rd and Osage, because the MOVE bombing happened at 6221 Osage Avenue, right in West Philadelphia, Osage Avenue. And so we're going to be at Cobb's Creek. We're going to hold space there at 5 p.m. And then we're going to move in a march down to Malcolm X Park. We're going to have some further activity in Malcolm X Park on that evening. So just keep May 13th on your radar, which is coming up in a few short weeks. And then that's going to lead us, as I close, sorry for time, July 3rd, like I mentioned earlier, is the 40th anniversary of the conviction. And so we want to have a big, huge rally, right? So we're pushing the rally that usually normally would be on his birthday to this year, July 3rd, right? Again, it's July 4th weekend. And so we want to disrupt the whole world to let people know what's really happening with Mumia Abu-Jamal so we can bring him home. And so not only is there going to be a call to action in Philadelphia, as far as ground zero is concerned, ground zero, but putting a call out to also 40 cities across the country, 40 cities to have a rally, action, teaching, march, a PE, something that will raise it in Mumia Abu-Jamal. So I don't care if you're, Baltimore, Grand Rapids, Sacramento, right? The reality is get involved on that day, July 3rd, in your own city to build on Mumia Abu-Jamal, to disrupt space and raise up the name Mumia Abu-Jamal and all political prisoners. That's why we say not only free Mumia Abu-Jamal, but we say free them all, right? We always say, what's the call? Free them all.
Free them all.
Free them all.
That's right. Let's talk about some of the literature, because there's some of the great literature and books about Brother Mumia. I was actually a couple weeks ago looking. I got it on my bookshelf and everything. Long Distance Revolution,
of course,
which is a fine piece of work.
Powerful.
Very, very, very powerful. Very, very intimate about Mumia, and that one of the things is that makes Brother Mumia such a beautiful individual is his sense of his humaneness. You know what I'm saying? And his humaneness and his humility.
Yeah.
But at the same time, he's very, very real.
Yeah.
And he understands the system. He understands this system like none other, like no other I've encountered, or I've read, or I've had the opportunity to listen to over the years. He understands this system and the nuances of it and how it works.
Yep.
Behind it, and this is what he talks about in that particular book. So let's, if we're in the process of educating people who are watching this particular program and are not knowledgeable to Mumia and anything like that, they can really become very, very knowledgeable to him. What are some of the books that you would you refer to them? Would you suggest to them, brother? Read?
Yeah, the powerful thing I mentioned before, brother, is that from the inside, he's been in some ways more free than us on the outside. He's written a dozen books while on the inside, and it's funny because I was just looking at my phone because I was going through it because I've read probably about half of all of his books. But I'm going through my phone. You probably can't see it on the thing just because of the light and everything else. But I'm looking at Writing on the Wall, powerful book by Mumia Abu-Jamal. His big one that really kind of put him to national prominence was Live from Death Row. The movement was able to, and the campaign was able to get him off of death row because they were actually prepared to kill him back in '95. But the movement was able to halt that. But his book, Live from Death Row, is a powerful one. Jailhouse Lawyers, right? We know the science on jailhouse lawyers and what that means for all our brothers and sisters on the inside. But here's a great book called Jailhouse Lawyers. A big one that I read when I first actually came into the work about 10 years ago when I've been doing, like, we could sort of relaunch the campaign, is All Things Censored, a really, really big one. And then his most recent ones that he wrote about 5 years ago now at this point, he had a book called Have Black Lives Ever Mattered? You know what I mean? It's a nice short read of speeches and commentary. And then he's got a series of books that he wrote with an author named Stephen Slater. He made the film for Long Distance Revolutionary, and he's got a 3-part series of books that he wrote. So you can get all these books. Check them out. Again, you can also go to prisonradio.org to get all the books, or also go to any of the other sites that I just mentioned. Again, you can get the T-shirts, all the merchandise, and the great thing about it is, reading his analysis, you'll get his critiques, but also his solution-oriented action around everything from how we need to address white supremacy, combat, the state government, combat police brutality, combat, just the ways in which capitalism has affected our communities, and what needs to happen there, just the whole economic infrastructure. And he also looks at globally, a lot of the different movements globally, right? So if you're not familiar with it, but the good thing about it is that Brother Oba and I are both, Pan-Africanists, right? And so he knows what's going on the continent and what needs to happen, right? He knows what's going on throughout the diaspora and what needs to happen. And so definitely pick up those books so you can get what's going on. So again, just to kind of rehash again some of the names, All Things Censored, Live from Death Row, Have Black Lives Ever Mattered? And I'll probably say start there, and you can kind of get the rest.
Let's talk about real quickly what's going down on May the 19th, which is coming up in honor of our brother Omawale, brother El Haj Malik El Shabazz, known to the world as Malcolm X, formerly Red. To honor him as we have done now for the past 5 years.
This is actually seventh year.
Actually, this is 7th year. My God,
time flies.
I remember the first CMXD.
No doubt.
Yeah, the CMXD that we had. So yes, 7 years have flown by, Yes, so let's talk about that. What's coming up to honor the born day of Baba Malcolm X at Malcolm X Park in West Philadelphia.
So back in 2015, we launched an initiative called RBG Fridays, right? Right on Broad and Girard, RBG Red, Black, and Green, of course. We basically were on a corner, occupied a corner, every Friday from 5 to 8 p.m. With our RBG flags, gave out free food, free clothes, free literature, a lot of free information. Pretty much really just held space there for 3 hours, letting everybody know that we're there in the spirit of Black power, Black information. People will come by, get all kinds of information, details, do what we need to do, support children, support resources, support all kinds of organizations that will come and gather and build. We did that every Friday for 3 years straight, from July 2015 through July 2018. Literally every Friday, even through the wintertime, dead cold, holidays didn't matter. We was out there. And what produced out of that was my comrade, Brother Ron Green, linked up with a sister down. I believe she was in Atlanta, if I'm not mistaken. No, sorry, she was in DC. Who said, "Look, man, we need to reclaim or claim Malcolm X Day and Malcolm X's born day as a day of celebration, but we don't have to wait for the government to give us that day. Let's do it for ourselves in the spirit of self-determination." And so 2016, we hold our first CMXD or Claim Malcolm X Day event right in Philadelphia in the heart of, Malcolm X Park, which is a very known Malcolm X Park, which is also where we have every year our African Independence Day, always held the first August, first week, Saturday in August, right? Which is always a key celebration as well for our people. But we hold them at Malcolm X Park, right? This is a park that was formerly called Black Oak Park, but organized activists back in the late 80s, early 90s chose to rename it to Malcolm X Park, which is a beautiful thing. And just to kind of get some of that, again, movement history, right? And defense and protection of our cultural spaces. And so this year, and we always do Malcolm X Day, unlike what they've done with King Day, where it's like a day of service, or it's not even on his day all the time, which is his born day of the 15th. We always do it on the 19th. I don't care if it's Saturday or weekend, or if it's Wednesday, or if it's like this year on Thursday. We always do celebration in the park on his actual born day of May 19th. And so it's going to be from 1 to 6 p.m. It's going to be some phenomenal speakers. It's going to be some phenomenal performers, entertainers. We're going to be all speaking and performing in the spirit of Malcolm X, like what Malcolm meant to you. We're going to have a marketplace, a vendor marketplace. We're going to have a youth section, a youth pavilion. We're going to have a health pavilion. And really, it's going to be all in the spirit of Malcolm X, man, Brother L. Harris. As you said, this is a brother who means so much to so many. And what Malcolm X has personally meant for me was he really was part of that initial foundation as a child, reading his autobiography, watching the movie, but more importantly, meeting elders who knew him, who put me on game about who his brother was and legacy, which also connected me back over to Elijah Muhammad, to Noble Drew Ali, and all the leaders in our history, right? And so it was very, very important for me to study Malcolm X, but also to use his name as a way in which to gather, our African family, our Black family here in Philadelphia, to build, to celebrate, and to honor, and in a real way. And so again, 1 to 6 p.m. we'll be out in the park. Look for the flyers. If you want to vend, if you want to participate, email us at cmxdphilly@gmail.com. Again, cmxdphilly@gmail.com. You can also go to our Instagram or Twitter, which is also cmxdphilly. Again, Instagram, IG, or Twitter, cmxdphilly. Hit us up. Let us know what's going on. Really for vendors, though. We really want to support the vendors here in Philadelphia and across the country. We pretty much have our performance, I think, for the most part, locked down. And the speakers, we might want to have you, Brother Oba. You might need you, brother. This year, we're doing something different, too. We got 2 panels happening at this year's, just to kind of give you guys a little bit of some insight. We're doing one panel that's looking to address, in the spirit of Malcolm, what would Malcolm say about what's going on with this rising increase of community violence? And where's this violence coming from? And we're going to address that in a way that Malcolm actually taught us back in the 60s. And if you don't know what Malcolm taught us, come on out and we'll hear about what Malcolm said specifically about the community violence and how we should best approach it. Because if you don't look at the root of this thing, right? Shout out to Jawanza Kunjufu and so many others who taught us, right? Amos Wilson, who already taught us what happened. Some of that information is going to be shared at Malcolm X Day. And then we're also going to do a panel discussion about, how do we look at this question of economic resiliency and financial literacy for African people. And not so much in a Eurocentric way, but in a way that best serves us. And so those are going to be Twitter panels that we're going to have along with all the other festivities. So again, May 19th here in Philadelphia, Malcolm X Park at 52nd and Pine Street.
Right. Two things. One, is critical to really sit down and diagnose and analyze the situation with violence, especially right here in our backyard, right here in Philadelphia. Philadelphia's numbers are just off the charts. Have surpassed Chicago. And become the murder capital, quote unquote, of the United States, right here in Philadelphia. That has to be addressed, and action has to be taken. And action doesn't. I'm not saying just. I mean, action as far as these race soldiers, these Gestapo. But I'm talking about action has to be taken by the community.
Yes, sir.
You have to take back your community. You have to take back your community. You have to have a plan of action that in developing institutions and programs and things of that nature that are going to refocus our youth and our young people. So that's very, very critical, and I'm glad that you all are having that particular dialogue at CMXD at claiming Malcolm X Day.
I'm gonna tell you, brother, we thought that it would actually be irresponsible of us in a moment where, as of yesterday, right, we've had over 145 homicides already in Philadelphia. 145 homicides, and as of today, as of the day of this recording, it's April 21st. 145 homicides, brother. So, and we haven't even hit the summer months and the out of school time months and all that kind of stuff, right? And so your point is so valid, and we knew in the spirit of, again, responsibility to our people, that we couldn't avoid that question. We gotta embrace that uncomfortable question, because too many of our activists also, by the way, have been directly impacted. I know personally activists, organizers, who have cousins, sons, daughters, children who have been shot by just community violence, bro. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's, or carjacked, or all kinds of stuff. A son who might be trying to join a gang. I have a young person who was caught with a sort of shotgun, 12 years old. So the reality is, brother, until we face the facts and really come together and unify to address this, because we could talk all the sovereignty we want, and we must do that. We could talk all the self-determination we want, and we must do that. But to the average person, black person living in Philadelphia, I don't care if it's South Philly or Uptown, they saying, Brother Gabe, I love you, brother. I love your abolition. I love your Memorial Abu Jamal. But a kid had his head blown off last night in front of my house. You see, I'm dealing with that right now. I'm traumatized by that reality. And so we have to make sure that we merge those entities, and we have to figure out a better way as activists and organizers to not, in my opinion, run away from an issue because we feel as though it's not political enough.
Right. I totally agree with you. Even on the piece of financial literacy.
Yes, sir.
Our good brother Farouk. Shout out to my good brother. Farouk deals with each and every Monday. He's dealt with the last 2 Mondays on his program, Be My Eye Inc.
Peace to him.
On My Eye Mondays right here on Do the Knowledge Radio at 7 p.m. Dealing with the idea of financial literacy. It's important and it's critical.
Yes, sir.
It is a building block towards, quote unquote, nation building and African sovereignty.
No question.
So, you know, we definitely have to deal with that piece, and I'm glad that you all are dealing with it at CMXD. I will be there.
Thank you, brother.
In full support.
Always.
And anything that you all may need and anything like that, you know how to get in contact with me.
Of course.
We'll definitely touch bases offline.
Of course.
But before we close, any last words that you want to say, and as well, how can people get in touch with you, Brother Gabe?
No doubt. So people can hit me up on Instagram at Good Brother Gabe. All right, that's Good Brother Gabe. It's actually brother with an ER, not brother, but it's Good Brother Gabe. I appreciate when Brother Oba always, you know, puts his stuff out. I love you, but you've been doing brother for so long. I love it, you know, seeing it on your social media. But it's Good Brother Gabe on IG, Gabriel Bryant on Facebook. Just to hit me up, you know what I mean. That's probably the best way to hit me up. Just DM me there if you don't know me. You can also email me, Gabriel Bryant. My name is pretty much right there, GabrielBryant.7@gmail.com. Hit me up there as well. But if I had to end with, you know, as far as like a final thought, I would say this, man, you know, be encouraged. You know, there's a lot going on around the country. You know, Brother Oba said earlier about the issues with COVID possibly opening things back up again, and, you know, the challenges with the virus, but also even more importantly, you know, thinking about the heightened violence, the ways in which the state is attacking us, the prison rate is skyrocketing, you know, health is at an all-time low. And I think for many of us, some of us, even our best activist organizers, do feel the weight and the heaviness of hopelessness and even helplessness. And all I can say is that, you know, we also recognize that we have so many victories that we should sit with. And I had an elder remind me the other day. He said, Brother Gabe, through all of the devastation, through all of the murder, through all the massacres, he said, there has never been a point in human history than today that we have the most Africans on the planet now than ever before.
Right.
Despite the reality of us being warred upon. The reality is our numbers tell such that there's never been in human history this many Africans on the planet. Right. And so we've always going to find ways to have Black family, have Black babies, and thrive even through the madness. And so we must continue to be vigilant, continue to be strong, and continue to organize.
Thank you. Thank you, my brother, Brother Gabe. It's been great having you. You're always welcome to come back to War Report.
Of course, brother. Thank
brother.
you.
Hope to have you back.
Give thanks, brother. Yes, sir.
And definitely, man, you know, we'll definitely touch base with all the things that are coming up. Wolfley, I'll see you this weekend.
Yes, sir.
For, you know, for Brother Mumia's 68th birthday.
Yes, sir.
Celebration as we, you know, celebrate and honor him. And, you know, brother, I know you and you know me. We're going to continue to do this work.
Always.
We do. You know what I mean? This is the
long in the making
contract that we signed.
Yes, sir. And in the spirit of economic resiliency, also, as y'all see across the bottom, support the War Report family. Go to that Cash App. You know, go to the War Report series. Go to the Cash App. Oh my God, 7. Support the brother. Support the family with the Cash App, y'all. Support the brother in the spirit of sovereignty and self-sufficiency, y'all.
Thank you, Brother Gabe. Thank you for that and everything like that. Thank you. I appreciate it. Sure, you know, Knowledge Born appreciates that. But thank you, my brother, and we'll talk very, very, very soon.
Yes, sir. Peace.
Stay
strong.
Black power. All right,
Black
now.
Power, y'all. Black power.
You're just hearing from Brother Gabriel Bryant, my good brother, updating us on the current status of the case of our good brother Mumia Abu-Jamal, as well as his work with multiple political prisoners, brothers and sisters behind enemy lines, who are, you know, political prisoners of war. We can't forget about them. We must continue to fight each and every day, not only in just the liberation and sovereignty of African people, but understand that these people that are behind enemy lines are part of that struggle, are part of that movement, are part of that particular fight. So we thank Brother Gabe for being on with us this evening. And as we close out, once again, want to remind everybody, Saturday, August the 6th, the 18th annual African Independence Day Mayat celebration at Malcolm X Park. And it will all start off at 10 a.m. Got to say this at the beginning of the program, but I'd be remiss to leave out the fact that we have our fifth annual Pan-African Junkanoo that will start at 52nd and Arch Streets at 10 a.m. And we will process our way down through the corridor of 52nd Street and the business district of 52nd Street to Malcolm X Park, which is located at 52nd and Pine Street, the site of the 18th annual African Independence Day Mayat celebration. We are asking people to make costumes out of, perishable items, what people would consider junk. That's where the whole term junkanoo comes from, which actually was birthed out of the Caribbean, out of West Indies, and a tradition that grew into Carnival, or what many of us look at today. That of course this double stole from us, this cracker stole from us, and now has the Mummers Day Parade. So so we have to know and understand that the tradition, like Junkanoo, it belongs to us as African people, and we need to honor that particular tradition. And so we do that each and every year at African Independence Day by having a Junkanoo, having various different drill teams, various different organizations, spiritual groups, be a part of this huge festive parade celebrating African culture, going down 52nd Street each and every year. And then we will go into African Independence Day as an official opening for it. Of course, we will have great entertainment, powerful speakers, great entertaining performers, African marketplace, much like that of CMXD. So it all takes place at Malcolm X Park, which is basically the hub of culture in the city of Philadelphia, located at 52nd and Pine Streets. So for more information, you can call us at 267-521-1544. Once again, that's 267-521-1544 if you would like to then perform, or if you would like to speak and be a part of this historic event, the 18th annual African Independence Day Mayat celebration. You can also hit us up on Gmail at africanindependenceday@gmail.com. African spelled AFRAKAN. Once again, that's AFRAKAN, Independence Day @gmail.com. If you'd like to vend, if you'd like to perform, or if you'd like to speak at this year's 18th annual African Independence Day Mayat celebration. And our website will be back up very, very shortly. That's africanindependenceday.org. Once again, that's africanindependenceday.org, also spelled AFRAKAN, independenceday.org. We will have more announcements in the weeks to come on people that we've confirmed to perform, speak, and be a part of this great celebration that we have here each and every year in the city of Philadelphia. The last 18 years, 2004, started by my dear brother, our good brother, Brother Ahmed Akil Tahir, who actually made transition back in 2012. On May the 4th will mark 10 years since he has been gone from us.
10 years?
So yeah, it's been 10 years. So we definitely honor him each and every year, that spirit, that work, and to continue on this legacy that was started back in 2004 with the African Independence Day Mayat celebration. So we will have more information on that in weeks to come. So stay tuned for that right here on the War Report, right here on Do the Knowledge Radio. For anyone who would like to be a guest, a future guest of this program, please email me directly at obawajumi_Olàyínká@yahoo.com. Once again, that is obawajumi_Olàyínká@yahoo.com. My name, my first and my last name, with and underscore in between at yahoo.com. If there's anyone who has any comments, criticism, critiques, or any ideas on how to better this particular program, I'm open to it. Get in touch with me. Once again, email me at obawajumi_Olàyínká at yahoo.com. Once again, that's obawajumi_Olàyínká at yahoo.com. Please support all the great programming right here on Do the Knowledge Radio each and every day. Please support it by going to your Cash App, by going to your PayPal. Please support Do the Knowledge Radio on Cash App at $ Knowledge Born Allah. Once again, that is $ Knowledge Born Allah. And on PayPal, that's paypal.me/Do the Knowledge Radio. Once again, that is paypal.me/Do the Knowledge Radio. I'm going to thank my brother behind the boards, the CEO, the founder of this wonderful platform, this great station, Do the Knowledge Radio. My brother, the one and only, the God, Knowledge Born Allah, for all that you do, brother. You make this happen each and every week, and you keep this this ship called Do the Knowledge Radio sailing forward for African people, for our resurrection, rise, and redemption. And I want to thank my brother for that and all that he does each and every week right here on the War Report, right here on Do the Knowledge Radio. So with that being said, I will see you all next week, same black time, same black channel. And as I always say, a Bibi Fohodie, Bibi Tumi, Kujiti Wala, Odabo. I will see you next week right here for another edition of the War Report at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Till then, I'll see you next week. Black Power.
Black Power. Peace.
These are evil days when the President of the United States doesn't seem to understand that Africa is a continent, not a state. The problem is that you have a president who says things but has the power to execute and create racism. That's a dangerous power and a dangerous position.
I know they need me out here. Y'all know y'all need me out here. So let's get it. Pay homage, y'all rise to the honorable. Y'all know what I'm about to do. No alternative facts, homie, it's time for truth. No talent, I'm like, this gotta be some kind of spoof. But hip-hop never die, homie, I'm the proof. I'm Stephen King, boy, you Dr. Seuss. One of the illest, these suckers be in they feelings. Been getting busy since you're on the bus was stealing. The gay suffering, I come to do some healing. In the country where you'll get punished for kneeling. Standing up for your kind, they fast to give you a fine. Instead of dealing with the root of the problem, they ignore it while these officers are shooting and wilding. But for justice, I'ma rumble about mine.
There's no niggers here, why should they even come?
Gotta address the press, it's about time. Been the problem since Etch-a-Sketch, if you doubt, fine. I've been dope since the beginning, and Lance is a rep that's not about coke dealing and stripping. Classic flow, your head is different. I'm Fall City, they preschoolers. Lyrics still mad at dumb rappers, they need tutors. Winning as an indie since the industry refuses. Trying to turn our children into promethazine users and savages. Promoting music that's hazardous, truly blasphemous. They can use a better narrative. If you true, then you should clap for this. Shouldn't matter how many views and double tax I get or what my tax bracket is. For the art, so I'm apart, I'm right back to biz. I'm sure you know the status, kid. Simply sensational compared to the greatest who ever done it. Who's next to run it? I'm clearly debatable. Real is who I cater to. Opposition isn't as nearly relatable. I want my spot, they taking two. When I drop City in Crisis, y'all was quiet, neglected my message, said I'm too righteous. Now everybody following suit. If you been out the loop, I started this trend. Where my salute? Gon' make it clear to ya. I'm the people's choice in my area. Torch carrier, y'all break the net, I broke the barrier. Classic the discography. Take a peek and see all the legends that follow me. Tell execs that's the salary, I'm ready for it. Every beat I'm speaking heavy on it. I pay my dues, give me the credit for it. Had of my time since 9-9, now they catching on it. I promise mama I'ma get my moment. It's time to own it, I've been patient. To suicide and make it take it. I've been focused on showing the world I ain't the greatest. Underground by making major statements, shaking up the regular order. Trailblazing like Drexler and Porter. Most don't wanna watch your movie to the climax. Hey, you wondering where your homies illin' out scratch. About to have the game open, these jokers wild whack. Your time's up, youngins, I'm back. Hey yo, they tryna build walls and cause negative energy. Many people starving and these laws don't represent for me. Waffle House and Starbucks should both receive a penalty. Till these issues get resolved, they won't get a cent from me. Yeah, go run and tell them, spread it across the nation. The LP for president, stop mass incarceration. Putting sanctions on whack rappers, banning all the hating. Wave red, black, and green flags in my inauguration.